I still remember the exact moment my life split into two halves before Vivian Halley walked back into it, and after. I was standing in our kitchen, barefoot on cold tiles, pouring coffee I didn't even want, when I heard the front door open. Mom's voice floated in from the hallway, bright and warm the way it only got around one person. "Viv, oh my God, you're finally here." I froze. Vivian Halley. I hadn't seen her in 4 years. 4 years since she moved to Boston for some high-powered law career that apparently consumed her entire existence. 4 years since she sat at our dining table laughing with my mother while I tried and failed not to stare at her like a fool. I was 18 then, stupid and soft and convinced what I felt was just admiration. I was 22 now, and I was about to find out I was wrong. She walked into the kitchen and time did something cruel and slow. She was wearing a slate gray blazer, her dark hair pinned loosely at the nape of her neck, a few strands falling forward like they'd given up being professional. Her eyes, those impossible green eyes, swept the room and then landed on me. She stopped. Not dramatically, not obviously, but I noticed the half-second pause, the way her lips parted slightly before curving into a smile. "Scarlett," she said. "Just my name. Nothing else." But the way she said it felt like a hand pressing gently against my chest. "Vivian," I managed. "Welcome back." Mom was already pulling her further inside, talking about dinner plans and the guest room and how Boston had apparently stolen her best friend for far too long. Vivienne laughed at all the right moments, said all the right things, and somewhere in between. She glanced back at me over my mother's shoulder. I looked away first. That night at dinner, I learned 3 things about Vivian Halley. 1, she had just ended a 6-year relationship with a woman named Patricia, who had, according to the brief, tight smile Vivian gave when Mom asked, decided she wanted something simpler. 2, she was staying with us for 3 weeks, while her new apartment downtown was being renovated. 3, she watched me when she thought I wasn't looking. I know, because I was doing the exact same thing. After dinner, I sat on the back porch with a glass of wine I barely touched. The sky was doing something gorgeous, all bruised purple and fading gold, and I was trying to talk myself down from whatever ledge I've quietly climbed onto since 4 p.m. "She's 38, Scarlett. She's your mother's best friend. She just got out of a relationship. You are not doing this." The porch door opened softly behind me. I didn't need to turn around to know it was her. I felt her the way you feel a change in weather. Something in the air shifting, getting warmer and more dangerous all at once. She sat beside me, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something dark and soft. Sandalwood, maybe? Or regret. "You've changed," she said quietly. 4 years will do that," I replied, staring at the sky. Silence settled between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that holds its breath. "Scarlett, don't," I said softly. I didn't even know what I was stopping her from saying. I just knew that whatever came next would change something permanently. She was quiet for a long moment, then her hand moved, slowly, deliberately, and her fingers rested on top of mine on the armrest. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. The sky finished burning and went dark, and I sat there with my mother's best friend's hand covering mine, heart pounding like I was standing at the edge of something I could never come back from, because I was. 3 days, for 3 days after the porch, Vivian and I existed in a careful, excruciating dance of almost eye contact held too long, almost hands brushing in the hallway, almost conversations that started normal and ended with one of us walking away before they became something else entirely. I was losing my mind. Mom noticed nothing. She was gloriously, blissfully oblivious, thrilled to have her best friend back, filling the house with noise and laughter and elaborate dinner plans. She'd sent me to the store twice for ingredients. She'd roped Vivian into old photo albums and long phone calls with mutual friends. And through all of it, Vivian remained perfectly composed. perfectly composed and absolutely maddening. On the fourth morning, I came downstairs early, expecting the house to be quiet. Instead, I found Vivian at the kitchen counter in a silk robe, reading glasses on, reviewing what looks like a stack of legal documents. Her hair was loose. She looked softer than I'd ever seen her. More human somehow. More devastating. She looked up when I entered, and for one honest, unguarded second, something moved across her face that she immediately put away. "Coffee's fresh," she said, returning to her papers. "Thanks," I said, moving to the counter. We were quiet. The kitchen felt very small. "How long have you known?" she asked without looking up. My hand paused on the coffee mug. "Known what?" She took off her glasses and set them on the counter slowly. The way someone moves when they're choosing every action deliberately, so they don't do the thing they actually want to do. Scarlet. There it was again, my name in her mouth, a full sentence on its own. I turned to face her. She was already looking at me. 4 years, I said honestly. At least. Something in her jaw tightened. She looked away toward the window, and I watched her throat move as she swallowed. "That was when you were 18, she said quietly. It wasn't an accusation. It sounded more like she was reminding herself, "I'm not 18 anymore." "I know," her voice was low. "That's the problem." I set my coffee down and leaned against the counter, arms crossed. I needed the distance. I needed something solid behind me. "Does my mom know?" I asked that there was ever anything. "Nothing has happened, Scarlett." "That's not what I asked." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, softly, "No, she doesn't know." The weight of that sat between us like a third person in the room. "She'd be devastated," I said, not cruelly, just truthfully. "Yes," Vivian agreed. "She would." "So then why are you still?" I stopped, pressed my lips together. "Still what?" she asked, and when I looked up, her eyes were steady on mine, waiting. "Looking at me like that," I whispered. The silence that followed was the longest of my life. She stood up, and my breath caught because for one wild moment I thought she was coming toward me. Instead, she gathered her papers, tucked them under her arm, and picked up her glasses. At the kitchen door, she paused, back still to me. "I'm looking at you like that," she said quietly, "because I have been trying not to for 4 years, and I'm not doing as well as I'd like." Then she was gone. I stood alone in the kitchen with cold coffee and a chest full of something. I had no clean word for it. That afternoon, Mom announced she was visiting Aunt Clara for the weekend. A spontaneous trip, 2 days away. She kissed us both goodbye at 3 p.m., completely unaware that she was leaving behind a house that was about to catch fire. And as her car disappeared down the driveway, Vivian and I stood side by side on the front steps without touching, without speaking. The door was still open behind us. Neither of us moved to close it. Mom had been gone 4 hours when the storm rolled in. I don't mean that as a metaphor, though it was that too. I mean actual thunder, actual lightning, the kind of summer storm that makes the whole house feel smaller and the world outside feel far away. I was in the living room pretending to read when Vivian came downstairs. She'd changed into something simple, soft linen trousers, a loose white blouse. Her hair was down. She looked like a painting of someone trying to look casual and failing beautifully. She sat in the armchair across from me. Neither of us spoke for a while. The rain did all the talking. "I owe you honesty," she finally said. I closed my book. "When I left for Boston 4 years ago," she continued, eyes on the window, "part of the reason I didn't come back sooner was you." My heart stopped. I told myself it was work, the caseload, the partners, Patricia. She paused. "But the truth is, I looked at you one evening at your mother's birthday dinner, and I saw something in your eyes that scared me half to death. And then I checked myself what I felt looking back, and it scared me even more." "Vivian, let me finish." Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. I could see them, pressed together in her lap. "I am 38 years old. I have spent my entire career defending other people's choices and judging, none of them. But this one, this I have judged myself for every single day. I stood up. I couldn't sit still anymore. Why? I asked, crossing the room slowly. Why is this one worth judging? She looked up at me. This close I could see everything she'd been carefully keeping behind glass. The exhaustion of it, the want. Because she's my best friend's daughter, she whispered. Because I watched you grow up. Because I should know better. Maybe, I said softly. Knowing better is overrated. Her breath caught. And then I did something that took every bit of courage I had. I reached out and gently tucked that loose strand of hair behind her ear. My fingertips barely grazed her cheek. She closed her eyes. Scarlett, if we do this. I know, I said. I know what it costs. I know what we risk. I crouched down slightly so we were eye level. I'm asking you anyway. For a long moment, she just looked at me, searching, deciding. Then she reached up and took my hand from her cheek and held it. I need you to be sure, she said quietly. Not curious, not swept up in the storm. Sure. I've been sure for 4 years, I told her. You're the one who needed time. Something in her finally broke. Open, gently, like a door that had been locked. Too long swinging quietly free. She rose from the chair and stood before me, our hands still joined. And then she lifted her other hand to my jaw, careful, deliberate, tender, in a way that made my eyes sting. If your mother ever... I know, I whispered. And you still... Yes, I breathed. Vivian! Yes. She kissed me like she'd been afraid to for 4 years, soft at first, hesitant, like she was giving us both one last chance to stop. I kissed her back like I'd been waiting exactly that long. And then it was neither soft nor hesitant anymore. The storm outside pressed against the windows. The lights flickered once. We didn't notice. Later, much later, we lay tangled in the quiet dark of her room, her fingers tracing slow, absent patterns on my arm. The rain had softened to something gentle. The whole world felt paused and private, and ours. I'm terrified, she admitted to the ceiling. Of what? I murmured against her shoulder. Of how easy that was, she said. Of how long I should have been terrified of how easy that was going to be. I smiled against her skin. Outside, the storm was ending, and inside something else, something permanent and terrifying and wonderful, had just begun. Neither of us talked about what happened next. We didn't need to yet, but morning was coming, and with it, my mother's return. Mom came home on a Sunday afternoon with leftover pie from Aunt Clara, and a smile so warm, it cut me straight through the chest. You two survived the storm, she announced, setting everything on the kitchen counter. I felt so guilty leaving. Was it terrible? We managed, Vivian said from across the kitchen. Her voice was perfectly even, her face composed and familiar. She looked exactly like she always had, Diane Monroe's best friend. Polished and steady and completely untouchable. I busied myself with plates. Scarlett, you're quiet, Mom said, studying me. Tired, I said. Didn't sleep well. She accepted that, kissed my cheek, and began telling us about Aunt Clara's new garden renovation. I nodded in the right places, laughed at the right moments, and across the kitchen counter, Vivian met my eyes exactly once. Just once. Brief as a held breath, then we both looked away. That was how the next 4 days went. Careful, quiet, exquisitely painful. We didn't steal moments. We didn't reach for each other in empty hallways. Vivian was too disciplined and I was too aware of what carelessness could cost. So we existed in the space between what happened and what couldn't be undone. Polite. Warm, heartbreakingly normal. But on the 5th night, I woke at 2 a.m. to find a folded note slipped under my bedroom door. Meet me on the porch. She was already there when I came down. Wrapped in a cardigan, holding 2 cups of tea like she'd planned this with the same precision she gave her legal briefs. I sat beside her. She handed me a cup. The night was warm and still. I've been offered a position, she said quietly. In London, senior partner. It's everything I've worked toward. I stared at the dark garden. When? I'd leave in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Which was exactly when her apartment would be ready. Which was exactly how long she'd planned to stay. The timing was almost elegant in how cruel it was. Is that what you want? I asked. I don't know what I want anymore, she said honestly. And that is not something I've been able to say in a very long time. I turned to look at her. She was already looking at me. I need to ask you something, I said. And I need you to be honest. Always. Last weekend, was that goodbye for you? Her expression cracked, just slightly, just enough. No, she whispered. No. That's the problem. My eyes burned. I looked away before she could see. Then what do we do? I asked. Because I can't pretend. I'm fine, and I can't. Tell my mother the truth, and I can't. Ask you to give up. London and I can't. My voice broke. I stopped. Pressed my lips together hard. Her hand found mine in the dark. I know, she said softly. I know, sweetheart. That word undid me completely. I don't know which one of us moved first. Maybe neither of us did. Maybe we just both stopped holding still at the same time. She pulled me in and I pressed my face against her neck. And for a while, we just sat there. Her arms around me, my hands gripping her cardigan. Both of us breathing through something that had no clean resolution. I'm not going to pretend this is simple, she murmured into my hair. And I'm not going to make you a promise I don't know if I can keep. Then just tell me it was real, I said. Tell me I didn't imagine 4 years of this. Her arms tightened. It was the most real thing, she said, I have felt in a very long time. We stayed on that porch until nearly dawn.